the Justice Department is completely unraveling. It's going from being a prosecutorial agency to literally being a criminal defense law firm, and a criminal defense law firm with one client, the President of the United States. Here's what they put out today when they announced the release of 30,000 more pages and documents of the Jeffrey Epstein files. I mean, you got to read through this. And the funny thing is, the more they try to defend him, the more they show the shallowness of their defense. In other words, there is no defense because there's no evidence that would defend him. So the more they try to defend him, the more he looks guilty because it shows they have no case. But listen to this and tell me this doesn't sound more like a criminal defense law firm than the nation's premier prosecutorial agency. The Department of Justice has officially released nearly 30,000 more pages of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein. Okay. Some of these documents, here's the criminal defense starts right off the bat. Some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false. And if they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against the president already, really. Well, I mean, I got to tell you, you think about when famous cases, when famous criminal cases come up, and the defense attorney, like for P. Diddy or somebody, right, comes out, they sound exactly like this. What the government is claiming is completely untrue, and my client is completely innocent of all charges. It sounds just like this. The charges are unfounded, right? They always say that. And this is the Department of Justice. It is in shreds. It's literally in shreds, completely unraveled from what it's supposed to be. Nevertheless, out of our commitment to the law and transparency, the DOJ is releasing these documents with the legally required protections for Epstein's victims. I mean, here's what I get out of this. I get out of this, they did not want to do this. They were doing everything in their power not to do it, but they kept coming back to the fact that a law has been passed, and if we don't do it, we'll be breaking the laws. So they did it very reluctantly. Nevertheless, out of our commitment to the law and transparency, we're releasing these documents. But they spend the whole, what did I just do? I didn't mean to draw on that. I was trying to select it. Anyway, sorry. But yeah, the whole body of the message is a defense of Trump. And nobody even accused him of anything here. Just release the documents. It's not a court case. He's not on trial. You don't even have to say anything. But they did anyway. But look, Twitter skewered him, man. Twitter, they were like, no, get out of here. And these are some of the comments on that post. Zeno says, we're releasing the documents, but please know in advance they're fake, irrelevant, already debunked, totally harmless, and also important enough to issue a press statement about. If the DOJ tells you what to think before you read the documents, you already know they're lying. Well said, Zeno. Biggest Mac says, at this point, the leadership in Nigeria has more integrity than the U.S. system. The DOJ and FBI are a combined mouthpiece for Trump. What a time to be alive. You said that. That pretty much sums up my feeling as well. It's really true. Can you believe we're becoming more corrupt than places like Nigeria? And nothing against Nigeria. I don't know how corrupt their government is. I just know a lot of scammers used to come from there. So that's all I know about Nigeria. Other than that, it's a great place. And I mean that. I think it is a great place other than that. Okay. Now this person says, wow, so only Trump, no one else. All of these false claims are about Trump and the rest are all true. Must just be bad luck. Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, what's his name? What was that lawyer's name who's a big Trump supporter now? The Harvard guy. Yeah, I can't think of his name. Anyway, you probably know who I'm talking about. But yeah, he's in there. He's innocent. They don't have to say he's innocent. But seriously, why don't they say all these other claims about these other guys are false too? So if it was a claim against a Democrat, it's true. But if it's a claim against Trump, false. And people believe this? Seriously? I guarantee you 90% of Americans don't believe this. Even the MAGA people, half of them who say they do, don't. They know in their heart this is not true. They just need to get to a point where they can admit it publicly. All right, last but not least, this is the part that feels off. The DOJ drops tens of thousands of pages, then goes out of its way to preemptively defend one person before anyone even has the time to read the documents. If the claims are truly unfounded and false, why single them out at all? Good point. If you have to tell them you is, you ain't, right? Let the records speak for themselves like they've done with everyone else. Yeah, they let the records speak for everyone else without any comment. What makes it stranger is the double standard, no warning label for Clinton, no clarification tweets for others whose names appear. Just one very specific disclaimer. That doesn't build trust, it raises eyebrows. Transparency isn't supposed to come with narrative framing attached. That's right. Either release everything neutrally or admit you're trying to manage the fallout. That's right. Admit you were there to defend a client, a criminal client. People aren't crazy for asking the DOJ or for asking why the DOJ felt the need to step in this time. It's absolutely right. Not crazy. Now, one thing I want to look at. So check this out. One thing they say here is that, let me get that set up. Okay. Sorry about that. One thing they say is that the documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump. And if they were true, then Biden would have used them already. That's what they're claiming. If they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already. Okay, well, this is argument from from absence. If they had a shred of credibility, they certainly would have weaponized this against the president already. That is an argument from absence. This assumes that because something hasn't happened, the claim must be false. But that's not evidence. It's inference based on expectations. And to make an inference based on an expectation, you have to make sure your expectations are correct. But in this case, they've misread Biden and come up with false expectations. For instance, they think Biden operates the same way Trump does. And if Trump found some juicy information against his political opponents, he surely would have released it. So they assume everyone would do that. And they don't realize some people have a lot more integrity than their president. And Joe Biden is one of them. I don't know how much integrity Joe Biden had, but he had a lot more. He has a lot more than Trump. I'll say that. And I think he was a pretty decent president. I didn't feel misled by him when he was president. I can say that much. I never felt misled by him at all, in the least. So to say that Biden would have done the same thing is to simply misread the situation, not realize that Biden had a whole different attitude. And his attitude is, I don't want presidents to go after, former presidents. I don't want presidents who are in office now using that office to go against a former president who was their opponent in a legal criminal way. That doesn't set a good precedent. I think Biden was doing everything in his power to not set that precedent. And I think that was his big mistake. If he had, I think if he had foreseen that Trump was going to run again and win, I think he would have maybe gone after him harder and sooner. But on the other hand, I understand what he was trying to do. He was trying to say, look, we don't want the country to devolve into this, right? So if they had had actual evidence to show that Trump wasn't guilty, they would have given it here. But here they're just doing speculation and reasoning from the absence of evidence. Good evidentiary reasoning would include these things, which they don't have. Here are some of the things they don't have. They could have had contradictory documents that they had in their possession that contradict what some of these other things claim. If a document claims Trump was there and did something with the girl, And they had other documents from other people who were there and said, like an email that said, no, I didn't see him there. He wasn't there, as far as I know. Those are the kinds of things that qualify as evidence. But to say, hey, Joe Biden would have released this if there had been anything there, that doesn't mean that's not evidence. That's not evidence. That's where conspiracy theories come from. That's speculation. That's living on speculation. So also, if they're saying there's nothing there because Joe Biden didn't release it and he would have if there had been something there, then why don't they release it? Just release it all. Why do they still have hundreds of thousands of documents left that haven't been released a week late? They're almost a week late now. All right. Look, more evidence that could have proven that Trump wasn't in on these things, where we'll see some letters and things from Jeffrey Epstein where he's claiming Trump was in on it just as he was. But they could have sworn testimony that rebut those claims. They don't have any sworn testimony. They did, they would have brought it out already. But there is no sworn testimony rebutting these claims. Or they could have investigative findings. Say the FBI had, during their investigation, found out that, oh, Trump couldn't have been there. In fact, the day it's claimed that he did these things in Florida, he was actually in New York. They could have found out, his timeline wouldn't allow for some of these things to be true, some of these allegations. So they don't have any of that. That's why they have to resort to speculative thinking like this. Like, well, if they had had it, Joe Biden would have released it. But here's how Trump's twisted thinking works. In Trump world, in his twisted thinking, if the government goes after you because they have evidence that you've done something wrong, that you've committed a crime, and if he doesn't have the evidence, such as I just suggested, that would contradict their evidence or show it to be wrong, that's when he starts claiming that they're out to get him. They're just out to get me. That's what he does when he has no evidence to rebut their claims. And he makes their alleged being out to get him the issue, distracting people's attention from the fact that he has no evidence to refute their evidence. But that's not what saying the government is out to get you means. Being out to get you, get this, being out to get someone is what you call when government charges you with crimes that they have no evidence for. Get it? Get the difference? They have no evidence for these crimes. That's when they're out to get you. They are out accusing you of all kinds of things that they have no evidence for. That's out to get you. But when they have evidence and you don't, when they have evidence that you've committed crimes, but you don't have any evidence to show that you didn't commit those crimes, that doesn't mean they're out to get you. That means you're guilty. That's what that means. That means you're guilty. A guilty man is a man who can't come up with a shred of evidence to cast any doubt on the government's case. I know people say, well, you could be guilty and maybe not have any evidence, but it's rare. And in this day and age, with all modern technology tracking everything, your phone goes with you everywhere you go, everything's tracked. There's emails, text messages about everything you've said to anybody. It's much harder to not have evidence today that you're innocent, that you didn't do the things that they claim you did, if in fact you didn't do them. But if you did do them, it's very hard to have evidence for that, isn't it? It's very hard to have evidence to prove that you didn't do it when you did do it. Anyway, Pam Bondi has this Justice Department unraveling into the most corrupt Justice Department in American history. And as we knew she would, because she's taking her orders from the most corrupt president in history, I can't think of a single time in my whole life where anyone from the Justice Department has defended a person who could be a possible suspect in a case. Never. That's not what they do. They're a prosecutorial agency, not a criminal defense law firm. And certainly not a criminal defense law firm with just one client. I mean, I just, you got to wonder what kinds of crimes are going unpunished now because they're so distracted in defending the president of the United States and being his defense lawyers. What crime, what's going under the radar that they're missing? We don't know now, but we're going to know someday, and we're not going to like the answer. Anyway, for them to say that these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims against the president and claim that they are unfounded and false? Folks, those are the words of a defense attorney, not a prosecutor. Let's get real. MAGA people, wake up. With those very words, they not only make the president's guilt even more clear by their inability to offer a true defense with evidence and proof, but they also indict themselves and reveal how hopelessly corrupt they are. All those people from Pam Bondi on down are hopelessly corrupt, and that's what our government is staffed with all across the agencies. I want to say the Justice Department is the most corrupt agency in our government, but I can't say that. None of us can say that because all the departments are staffed with corrupt people just like these. The DOJ may have more ability to spread that corruption throughout society and to do more harm with it, and that's what makes it really dangerous and scary and bad. Anyway, we all got to keep standing up to this and keep speaking out. Everybody speak out. Okay? Get a YouTube channel, speak out, do it on social media, wherever you are. Do it. Speak out. Let's keep speaking out against this, all right? And we'll get it overturned sooner than you think. All right. Thanks for listening. I'm Jonathan Burton. I appreciate you watching. And if you enjoyed it, click subscribe. I'd love to have you on board. Take care. See you soon.